Welcome to Fiery Discourse, your podcast for media featuring dragonesses, female dinosaurs, and other similar saurians and scalies. I'm your host, Ludmillanon, and with me are my co-hosts, Angron, Stryker, Mathmachine, and LuckyEevee. Today is our 8th episode, and we're discussing Dragonheart Vengeance from 2020. So, let's get things started. So, a funny thing is, there's been a trend. It probably started in like the 90s with the whole direct-to-video boom, and it lasted until the early 2010s. But direct-to-video sequels of live-action movies have been surprisingly popular. And most of them are not that good. You have stuff like, say, Jingle All the Way 2 with Larry the Cable Guy. You have stuff like the endless amount of Children of the Corn sequels, which are based off of a 30-page short story.
Back that up. How many sequels for Children of the Corn?
They had like something like 13 of them or something like that.
I can check.
I know. It's insanity. It's insanity. But
it's not do that to Stephen King. Do
not. It's
like
a 30-page short story. And they stretched it out, but they have like the Scorpion King prequels, of which there's 4 of them. So yeah, direct-to-video as sequels.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and a short film.
Right.
Oh,
that is a lot. 11. That's still a lot, not 13, but still quite a lot for 30-page short story. But yeah, direct-to-video sequels is something that's always been popular, and the movie today we're talking about, Dragonheart Vengeance, is the 4th sequel to the original Dragonheart movie from 1997. The original Dragonheart, I have only seen it a couple of times. I recall it being a decent movie. It's not like Lord of the Rings quality, but it's better than some of the other fantasy movies that stuff like in the Name of the King. It sits in like a middle ground, I think, of fantasy movies. Although Draco himself is a fantastic character. With that being said, the actual special effects for Draco himself sadly have not aged so well. He looks good at night, like at scenes when they're at night and they don't have to put like too much, light on him. He looks pretty good. But in scenes where he's like in direct daytime, like the scene where he rises out of the lake and like looks at the sheep and that looks almost unfinished. I mean, it is like Spawn level CGI. And again, this was 1997, so you got to cut them some slack. But on the other hand, you have stuff like Jurassic Park or T2, which came before it, which looked like 1,000 times better because they mixed practical effects with CGI.
Hell, even Batman Mask of the Phantasm did CG better, and honestly, after hearing that.
Oh, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the concepts of Dragonheart were well done. Connery does a very good performance, and since the movie was mildly successful, I don't know if it was like a huge box office smash, but it was successful enough to where it got sequels. Now, the ironic part is because even though they had Sean Connery in the movie, they didn't do the obvious casting, which was to get George Lazenby, then you get Roger Moore, then you get Timothy Dalton, then you get Pierce Brosnan, and then you get Daniel Craig, even though Craig wasn't
Harrison Ford, and then you get whoever the heck did the Russian person in that one Indiana Jones 3 movie.
Right, exactly. But seriously though, so Dragonheart Vengeance is the fifth movie in the Dragonheart franchise, and for a direct-to-video movie, it is very, very well done. Like it is almost, I'd say it just needs a little bit of a notches to almost be theatrical quality, which is something that is very rare for a lot of these direct-to-video movies. If you have seen like the Sharknado sequels, you will know that to some direct-to-video live-action movies can be just complete junk, with like zero effort put into it. But this, someone definitely cared about the production, cared about the sets, which are very well done. And like I say, the story is definitely one that fits in the world thing. You can actually watch this movie and not see a single other Dragonheart movie, and you will probably get the gist of it, which I feel is actually a good sign of a sequel in this case, because it meant that they made it more universal.
Yeah, admit that they made it their own thing, more or less, which honestly is surprising, which almost makes me not want to see the other movies, because what's the point? We got this movie right here. It's all you need.
Right.
And I gave a little bit of misinformation earlier. It was a 96 movie. It got 97 nomination for visual effects. That's what confused me.
So...
Okay, I'm checking, and there are 6 Sharknado movies.
Yeah.
there
are.
Plus 3 spin-offs.
Crazy.
Firstly. Secondly, on the note of the 1996 thing, that's honestly the same year Minnesota Fast honestly passed away. Wow. So, interesting thing to know, but still.
Okay. But yeah, so getting back to Dragonheart Vengeance, it really is a very well done movie, especially for in its genre. The protagonist Lucas is actually pretty decent. It does remind me a little bit of Aragon, but it does it better. I feel like he has like a better motivation in that, and of course you can't talk about this movie without talking about the villains or supposed villains, even though they're working for another force, the Raiders, who are really just so awesome, especially for this, and they're not named. I think they're called like the wolf, the scorpion, etc.
Bear and the snake.
They're
not actually given names; they're just given titles.
But they are really, really. They really have like an old school fantasy vibe about them. They like something you would find in like an 80s fantasy movie, something like maybe Legend, or I'm trying to think what was the other one that was in the 80s, or not Dragonheart. What was the one? Anyway,
The Labyrinth, maybe?
No, not Labyrinth. Definitely not Labyrinth. But anyway, but they definitely have like an 80s fantasy vibe about them. They seem like they would definitely fit in that kind of world. And again, you could make the obvious, comparisons between this and Lord of the Rings. Maybe that would work too. But you could make comparisons between this and like Lord of the Rings, because you can definitely tell they're taking a little bit of the visuals from it. But on the other hand, I feel like this movie really just stands alone on its stands alone on itself. It does it very, very well. And like I say, the soundtrack too is very good, because a lot of these direct-to-video sequels, they often use like generic stock music or like a lot of synth-heavy stuff, your royalty-free stuff. But this actually seems like they did it in a little bit of a different direction. Now, with that being said, this movie isn't perfect. It's a little bit it doesn't really drag. Dragon movie drag. But anyway, but what I'm basically saying is
super drags.
Exactly. Yeah. But what I'm saying is the movie does kind of seem like it gets a little bit bogged down in like the middle part, even though, like I say, it is a very good movie, and it definitely has good action sequences. Like that part at the beginning with like the raid on the house and with the raiders and that is actually so well shot. And again, it's clearly used, digital and not, film for this, as a lot of direct-to-video sequels do. But it is still really, really well done, I feel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I like the acting in this and the way they portrayed the characters. But the editing is what really hurts this movie. It just feels like cut to cut with nothing connecting them.
Also, some of the green screen was a little distracting. Like, there were some points I couldn't tell if it was green screen or actual landscape. Also, some of the camera movement was a little iffy. But honestly, I mean, given the fact that it's a direct-to-video sequel, I can't really fault them for that, even though, yes, it does bring the movie down a bit.
Down a little bit, but you can't really fault them for that, because they have to work really within the limitations they have. You could definitely tell if this was like a theatrically released movie, a movie with a higher budget, that they would be able, to probably have, better editing, or like on-screen filming, or even like better green screen effect. But for what it is, it does work, even though I will definitely agree with you on the editing there, that it can be pretty choppy at times. Not as bad as something like, I don't know if you've seen Taken 3.
I have not.
There's a part where Liam Neeson jumps over like a fence. It takes 16 cuts for like one scene of him climbing over a fence. It is like so distracting. But it is a little bit like that in this, but thankfully not as bad.
Yeah, and you can tell in this movie where they put all the budget as well, and I think they made the right choice with that.
Yeah, they did Siveth really good. Yeah, they did her really good.
And of course, we will talk about her in about probably a second. But yeah, like I said, Siveth definitely is the best part of this movie. I mean, she's the reason the movie exists, of course.
Yes.
And she is the first Dragoness in the Dragonheart franchise, surprisingly. Took them 5 movies to get to it, but better late than never. And she's voiced by Helena Bonham Carter, who is a fantastic actress. And that is a huge get for a direct-to-video sequel. Somebody like Helena Bonham Carter. Most of the time, the star power in direct-to-video sequels are guys who, are name recognizable, but are definitely guys who are a little past their prime. Like, for example, like Dolph Lundgren and guys like that, basically.
The amount of movies Bruce Willis has been in.
Yeah, that was more of a sad case, but yeah, no, a lot of them basically direct-to-video sequels for the most part don't get that level of a star talent that Helena Bonham Carter basically is, and she does a fantastic job. As always, she's a fantastic actress, and the voice really, really suits her, Siveth basically.
Oh yeah, it does. It very much.
Yeah.
Does.
I mean, seriously, you have a freaking dragoness who can shapeshift into other animals, and still be smart as said animals, and you can pretty much have her freaking pee on a guy's gear, and still pretty much have her be the most dignified part of the entire movie.
Exactly. Yeah. But yeah, that's kind of like what ties into the first movie where dragons could disguise themselves as like, rocks and stuff like that. It's interesting how they built more on the lore that dragonesses can turn into other animals. And it really does work for the character. And again, she is easily the most dignified part of the movie. She's the part of the movie with the most care and, effort put into it. And again, the effects on her are incredible. We are living in a world where the direct-to-video sequel, the fourth sequel, has better effects than, the original. Granted, there's been a lot of advancements in technology, but still, the fact that you can actually say that is kind of incredible.
Yeah, pretty much most of the movie has pretty much scenes that make it look like something out of, I don't know, a freaking, oh gosh, an Imagine Dragons music video, but keeping Siveth the same and keeping her consistently looking good, sounding good, just that is the kind of movie that I honestly am surprised exists, and I'm really glad it does.
Now there are just a couple of scenes where the lighting effects on her are a little bit off. Thankfully, the reason they keep clouds on her and that, and her in the darkness is probably to avoid that. She's not really in the direct sunlight until later on in the movie, but she does look good for the most part. There's just maybe one scene with a little bit of weird bit of lighting on her, but aside from that, she is just so well done. The gray scales, gray whitish scales really work for her.
The silver scales.
Exactly.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
A silver scaled dragoness with blue eye. Dragon, what the shit movie?
Oh my god!
Someone call up Sharknado.
Oh my god! You have just unleashed. Whoa, that is something else. Oh my god, that is amazing.
I love her even more now.
Oh yeah, that bumps her up a lot. That definitely bumps her up a lot. In terms of the appreciation there.
Yeah.
But yeah, the design apparently was reused from Dragonheart 4. They reused some bits of it in some sequences. I have never seen the fourth Dragonheart, so I can't say.
Probably not gonna now that Siveth exists.
No, definitely not. It's like now that you have this, you probably could just watch the original and watch this, and you get the whole gist of everything.
Pretty much, yeah.
Siveth, like I say, has ice powers, which definitely is something unique for dragons in general on film. Most of the time, of course, dragons, are associated with, fire and stuff like that. You don't really see elemental dragons in film, period. I think Siveth might be one of the only examples, believe it or not. And if she is definitely a good one, because the way that, the effects on, her ice breath and stuff like that is, again, very well done with how the mist and that. And, sorry.
I mean, granted, you do get other examples of other elemental dragons. Pokemon, D&D, Neverwinter, that sort of thing.
Maybe
but
in live
I feel
action film.
I feel
Yeah,
I
better way to
think
say it.
movies need to expand more on like dragons outside of like the fire element. I mean,
Oh yeah.
I think we get some of that with other media like Yu-Gi-Oh and whatnot, but
Like in live
otherwise,
action film, you
Yeah.
definitely gotta do more of it. But yeah, like I say, Siveth really is just a fun character. She's very dignified, and the movie has a surprising amount of comedy and well, I'll be damned, the comedy actually really works well, you know?
Mm.
The one part, of course, that is great is, the whole bit where she's trying basically to help Lucas talk to Alana. It's, of course, the classic Cyrano de Bergerac moment, and
Yeah.
it always reminds me that whenever anything like that happens in, like, a movie or a TV show, I'm always reminded of the one episode of Futurama, with Fry and Zoidberg, oh, tell her she lost weight. You look malnourished. Do you have any parasites in you? Like that. There must be a Zoidberg.
I'm also reminded of Cyrano de Bergerac, but the version that Family Guy did, like how Peter, Quagmire, Joe, and freaking Cleveland did like a neighborhood watch program or something like that, and like they see Cyrano de Bergerac like trying to help this one guy out, and then they just like freaking derail the whole thing. Like the guy's saying what's going on to Cyrano de Bergerac, and it's like Peter and the others beating the crap out of him.
Oh god, okay. But this version of that part, that cliche part, is actually really, really well done. I love, like I said, the world building of dragon courtships and like stuff like the jaw lock and things like that. It definitely is funny and well done, and it works because Siveth is basically the straight woman in the situation. She is acting, about what dragons know and dragon instincts and stuff like that. And it is probably one of the funniest parts of the movie. And in a movie that really has no right to be as funny as it is and well written as it is.
Every time Siveth was on screen, for the most part, like every time she and like every time a funny moment happened on screen with Siveth, it was hilarious.
Oh,
like
definitely.
scene, like the freaking that like
Yes,
her
yes.
spitting one-liners and fire like nobody's business.
Exactly. Yeah, she definitely has like a sarcastic personality to her, and it actually, like I say, it really works out well because it allows her to have the best lines in the movie. And again, she really is the best character. Without her, this would be like a passable but not memorable, basically fantasy film. But with her in it, I think it really elevates it to like I said, being one of the better direct-to-video sequels and probably a really like decent fantasy film in its own right. It really is up there with almost the original in terms of quality.
Yeah, that's true.
And of course, the cool part is when he meets her, in their cavern. It definitely has not so much, like a Smaug vibes, but the way that she basically reacts to his presence and him reacting to the fact that a dragon is female, which is something that is funny, that is so rare even in universe. And he's like, you're a girl dragon, and he's just like,
a girl dragon
wearing a frock. Exactly. I'm not like that one. That's definitely another girl dragon. But yeah, her line in retaliation to it is, do you want me to wear a frock? It's so great. It's so great. And yeah,
also,
like I said, she unhinges her jaw around him, which definitely is something that probably has a lot of views on YouTube. Let's just say that. But no, it is really, really well done.
Yeah,
she's a very, very noble character.
Yeah,
and
very noble, even with all the near pulls she does in this movie.
Exactly.
Like that's the thing I really like about Siveth. Like she skirts that line of being smarmy and whatnot, but in a way that makes her noble, and in the end makes all her freaking intentions come to light in a very unique way, if you know what I mean.
Right.
Yeah, she is heavily carried by Helena Bonham Carter as well. She just brings this regalness that's just needed for this kind of character, which all of the Dragonheart movies have kind of done. Even the sequel one, the straight to video sequel ones, they've had a very good reputation for some weird reason of getting high-profile actors for the Dragons. Ben Kingsley in 3, Patrick Stewart in 4, Helena Bonham Carter in 5. So they kept the trend.
Whoa.
Wait, Patrick Stewart?
Yeah, I read that on the Wikipedia page. They got Patrick Stewart.
Whoa, that is
Really?
wow.
I mean, to be fair, they did get him for freaking like Bambi 2 and Romeo and Juliet, but like
that's
holy
still,
crap.
wow. That still is a huge get too. Probably almost as huge as Helena Bonham Carter. Wow.
This series seems to understand get high-profile, regal-sounding actors for the Dragons. They understand that, and that's what makes this work, I guess.
Exactly.
Yeah, like honestly, I'm surprised Charlotte isn't part of this because like her like I remember like from her like entire world book, like she said like some of the dragons have like interesting muzzles that make it hard to like enunciate normal English in like the sort of way that we sort of speak English, like American English. So but it makes them sound very different, like sort of an accent sort of. So honestly, and I can't help but be reminded of that because like have both regal and both accented sort of things, which honestly is very surprising in both respects.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I said, there is an interesting plot twist in the movie, which, spoilers for anyone who hasn't seen the movie, but it turns out that the king was working with the raiders, basically to keep control of the kingdom. And apparently this movie was, according to my notes, was actually inspired more like revenge-based westerns, like the Dollars trilogy, more than fantasy films with its story, which... I can see that. I definitely can see, that kind of plot twist being a surprise.
I can see that. That's for sure. Honestly, that ending did feel a little Western. I mean, I see the sights, and it honestly looks more like American or like South or like Canadian than anything else. Which
exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I say, the way that her story basically unfolds, because at the beginning you have the whole narration of her basically being a traitor and she was forced into exile into the cavern and stuff like that. It really ties into the story of vengeance and how her views on vengeance, that, vengeance is basically wrong, and, and it basically is something that fits very well with the tone of the series and the tone of the movie in general.
Mm-hmm.
And it definitely is kind of refreshing to see a fantasy movie with that kind of basically storyline to it.
Yeah. So unfortunately, this kind of goes back into this had a shoestring budget, straight to DVD kind of thing, because I use the term twist in heavy air quotes because that thing was projected from space.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. I just called it a twist because it is supposed to be a plot twist, but it was very obvious. It was extremely obvious even on like first viewing.
They sort of built it up from like the second half or like the final third. Like they're talking about how the king was kind of a dick and like they knew exactly what was going to happen. So
Exactly, yeah. But yeah, like I say, Siveth, of course, ends up being the one who saves the day, not with violence, but she saves them, the people of like the kingdom from famine with the crops she cultivated. So, like I say, that is something again that is very, very rare, especially for like a fantasy movie, where like the dragon turns out to be the main hero. Aside, of course, from the Dragonheart franchise, but outside of that, this is something that is extremely rare. Basically in movies in general, so it's really nice to see it here. And really the ending is just so heartwarming, how Siveth is basically accepted by society, and Lucas and Darius have basically moved on from, what their original goals were and stuff like that. It really is something that, it's an ending that wraps everything up, and it's an ending that wraps it up in a very, very nice way. And of course, it is, like I say, this movie, honestly, if it wasn't called like Dragonheart Vengeance and it didn't have a shoestring budget, this could have been a very good standalone movie on its own. Now, would it have been made if it wasn't supposed to be tied into the Dragonheart name is unknown. But regardless, it is a movie that I think is really, really well done.
Yeah, like in the end, they sought vengeance, but after finding out who their real enemy was, in the end, it was justice that won.
Exactly.
Which honestly, that's pretty solid from a movie that has pretty much the same budget as, say, something like Bartok the Magnificent.
Oh,
exactly.
And it is, and it is very amazing in that regard.
Yeah, especially for like a modern one where a lot of them now, I remember it was Honest Trailers who said this about Hocus Pocus 2. They said something like, I remember in their trailer, they said something like, man, don't you wish remembering when movies like this would go to theaters instead of being put direct to streaming? And it is kind of true in a way that there's something about these kind of movies basically being churned out for a streaming service that seems a little bit more cynical than being released on video. For some reason, I don't know why. It really shouldn't be, but there's something that just feels that way. But yeah, regardless, Siveth is a fantastic character, and her design is great. The voice is great. Basically, the way she's done as a character definitely makes her shine through. It's not quite like the analogy I sometimes give, a 10 out of 10 character and like a 5 out of 10 movie. Maybe what I would say is she's like a 10 out of 10 character in like a 6 out of 10 movie. Let's say that the movie is decent and the movie is good. It has good elements that aren't Siveth, but Siveth is the main reason to watch this movie. She is definitely the reason probably to watch this movie.
I would personally be a little more lenient towards this movie. I'd say about 7 or 8 out of 10 at most. Probably 7 out of 10 because its quality is far from other directed DVD movies, even though it's still hampered by the low budget. But it is very much enjoyable.
I'm actually a bit harsher on the movie in the opposite direction than from you guys. I view this as like a 5 movie, but then I'm comparing that to actual higher production movies. So I'm skewed on that. If I was just comparing this to direct to DVD movies, this is absolutely a 7 and 8. Yeah, because it is.
Exactly.
I can tell it's one of the better ones, but as just a standalone movie by itself, it is kind of eh.
Yeah, exactly.
Agree.
So that brings us to the question of the episode, which is, what direct-to-video live-action movies do you like? And I'm going to start off with a pretty interesting one because nowadays, sadly, they've made a lot of pretty bad movies. They made some movies that are really, really, really awful, but a lot of the Full Moon Picture features, like the Puppet Master movies from the 90s, are really, really well done, especially for direct-to-video movies. I say the first maybe 4 or 5 Puppet Master movies are theatrical quality, but sadly now Full Moon Pictures makes stuff like Ginger Dead Man, Evil Bong meets Ginger Dead Man, and they have a budget of $20, and they are basically unwatchable now. Sadly, Full Moon Pictures now is nothing from what they used to be with even the Puppet Master movies. You could tell are so cheap and haphazardly done. But there was something about them in the first 4, maybe I'd be generous and say 5 that are just really, really well done. The puppetry, of course, and basically on the characters and the stop motion is amazing for again the genre of direct-to-video movies. And overall, those are probably some of my favorite direct-to-video movies. And what would you have to say, Angron?
Oh, man. Okay. Direct-to-video. That's a tough one.
Live action, because we did a thing about the animation stuff.
Yeah, I know.
Sorry.
I'll be honest. I don't know that many good live-action direct-to-video movies. I mean, I could be tempted to say something like The Mummy Returns if possible, but I don't know if that was released in theaters or just.
That definitely was theatrical.
Oh fuck. Oh man, I honestly don't know. I haven't really seen a whole lot of direct-to-video live action movies, and if I have, I honestly wouldn't have known. I mean, one could. I mean, yeah, I honestly don't know. I haven't really seen a whole lot of live action, and if I have, it was either theatrical or I just didn't know if it was like freaking direct-to-video.
Right.
Though I guess I could go out on a limb and say freaking Roger Rabbit is the closest. But then I would basically have this. But then I immediately remember that freaking, maybe Batman, but that's probably also theatrical. Frick.
Right.
I honestly don't know.
Okay. Mathmachine, what would you have to say?
All right, this isn't actually a personal favorite series of mine, but I think it's an interesting topic just to talk about because my specialty is in animation, so that's kind of my forte. So this is just one of these things that like nobody knows about for some weird reason.
Okay.
So when talking about sequel series, everyone always thinks of Land Before Time series.
Yeah.
Or in the modern era, they might think Norm of the North or Alpha and Omega.
Or Bartok the Magnificent.
That one's one of the best.
Here's a sequel series that nobody ever talks about.
Oh,
The Swan Princess sequel series.
Oh,
it wasn't just the two movies right after it in 97, 98. For some reason, starting from 2012, they brought it back as CG, and there was a movie basically every year until 2020. Wow. And they all revolved around their daughter for some weird reason.
Yeah,
the original Swan Princess really isn't, is really not that good to begin with. So the fact that they actually managed to make that much that's kind of crazy.
VHS sales, man, they can keep a series going.
DVD sales, yeah.
Oh, it is wild, and looking at them, it is not a good series, but it's just one of these things that how it survived, nobody knows, and it just kept going.
Right. But yeah, that is wow. That definitely is pushing it. I mean, especially like when they go CGI, you definitely know that's a sign of when things are going to start to steadily go, start to steadily decline a little bit, especially like when they change the art style and they start focusing on like the children of the main character, then you're in for a bad time.
But yeah, the funniest part,
like the Alpha and Omega movies where some of them look like unfinished.
Yeah, and the funniest part to me is everyone always does talk about the Land Before Time ones because there's like 16 movies now.
Yeah, there are.
This has 10, and nobody ever talks about it.
Wow.
Yikes.
Yeah, that is insanity.
Though, honestly, I just remembered, like, Disney has made a bunch of direct-to-like-stream and direct-to-like-video movie live-action stuff. Like,
oh, no.
So, don't worry, it's one of the fucking good ones.
Yeah.
I think.
Remember most of them from
the two that ultimately come to mind for me in terms of uniqueness and like just overall just being amazing in their own way is like Loki and WandaVision. Now, WandaVision
TV spin-offs, really.
Sorry,
what? Those are more like TV spin-offs and like direct-to-video sequels. Direct-to-video sequels are like one and done kind of things. Well, these are like more like TV miniseries.
Yeah. Okay. I got nothing then.
That's right. Stryker, you have anything to add?
I barely know any. If there are any that I remember, it would be like the Disney Channel movies. Even then, they were just meh.
Yeah.
Yeah, those were just kind of generic, to be honest. Most of them, there were a couple of good ones, but for the most part, you don't remember any of them, probably for a reason.
Yeah.
Because
wait. I just remembered one.
Yeah.
I forget the name specifically, but the premise is like an African American family gets a transfer student from South Africa, but they themselves are like, white, so it's a little awkward. I forget the name of the movie, but it was something that Disney made.
All right. I probably haven't heard of it.
Color of Friendship. That's what it was called. I saw it in middle school, and it was very unique.
Haven't heard of it, so I can't talk about its quality, but sounds like it could be good.
Yeah.
All right. So, LuckyEevee, you got anything to say about this with the live action sequels to direct-to-video sequels, rather?
Nope.
All right. So, all right. I guess
but I have
now
uncovered new information.
Go ahead.
There was a Sharknado video game, a book, a one-off Archie comic.
Okay.
And 3 whole documentaries.
Okay, talk about extending out a franchise. I mean, that they milked every last drop out of that, concept. I mean, for all that to be made, wow. I'm
sorry, which franchise are you talking about in that regard?
Sharknado.
Oh lordy.
I know that is wow. That is insanity right there. Yeah.
I'm more impressed they got Archie to do this.
I can't believe that. Wow.
I mean, to be fair, they've done worse. They've canceled Mega Man. They've pretty much disowned canon Sonic lore and whatnot.
Exactly.
So,
yeah, penders. But
I miss
anyway,
Mega Man.
Yeah, same here. So anyway, now it is time for the one of the most important part of the show, the patent pending Dragoness Scale, where we rank the Dragoness from 1 to 10 and see what score she gets. So today we're talking about Siveth, of course, and I am going to give her a very generous score of 9 out of 10. Now, the reason I'm giving her that high of a score is because, as we've repeatedly said, she is easily the best part of the movie that she is in. She is such a well-written character. She is a well-animated character. She has excellent characterization. She has really excellent voice acting. I even love the little touches, like the reverb they put on her voice, basically indicating a size that it's something again that really works out well. So yeah, I am gonna have to give Siveth a very high score of 9 out of 10 because this is clearly what the filmmakers focused the most on with this movie, and you can tell every second that she's on screen, you can see all the effort that went into her. I definitely I can't give her a 10 out of 10 out of conscious because
the movie does hold her back a little.
Like a little bit. If this is like
it ties a hand behind her. Movie, I mean, it ties a hand around her back, but like, if she's still able to go despite that, I mean, she's got 3 other limbs, so
exactly. Good point.
Yeah.
Good point. But yeah, no, that really shows, I think, how well done she is. So yeah, Siveth to me, 9 out of 10.
Yeah, I will give her basically the same score, but on a more realistic note, because yeah, she's pretty much what made the movie, but there's a little more depth to her. Like, she has snark, she has like best characterization overall. Like, she more or less plays off very nicely with like the main characters. Like, she helps carry them along, she helps make them get better, and it's like she really does a good job. Like, her, and like also her intricacies, her like freaking abilities, her like lore,
even little details like her talking to herself.
Yeah, like I don't think that's ever really explained. I mean, probably because she's like a hermit and like she's had no one else to talk to for years. I mean, I can somewhat relate, but like
same.
Yeah, that is
like
really
the isolation part of her, but it does work out again.
Yeah. That is pretty amazing. Like, her abilities, her characterization, her role in the movie, it's all amazing. Like, again, the movie itself, the quality, the editing and whatnot does kind of keep her down just a little bit, but otherwise I can't really give her anything less than a 9 out of 10. She's that amazing.
Exactly. So Mathmachine, what would you have to give her?
I'm going to keep this train going and say 9. I've always loved the straight man or straight woman characters. Her regality is great. Her design is great. There's nothing about this character herself that I actually dislike. I can point to the exact scene, though, of why it's a 9 rather than a 10.
Okay, go right ahead.
The action scene where they are fighting the wolf's pack and she is swiping her tail to knock back some of the enemies, that scene just looks oof. Like, you can see they have no budget.
Yeah,
I understand a little bit.
That's one of the parts where, like, the low budget definitely works against the movie in a way. That definitely is one of the parts where you could tell that the low budget is they were fighting against it, basically.
Yeah.
You could tell if they had a higher budget, they would have gone a lot more elaborate with the effects and it would have looked a lot better. But for what it is, that is part of the problem of like direct-to-video stuff is that they have to cut corners a lot, and it definitely can show sometimes.
And
corners of the box.
Yeah. So
for those that haven't seen the movie, the scene itself basically played out like pole wires just lifting a person up and the Wilhelm scream. It was that low budget, that bad.
Right.
I mean, the Wilhelm scream doesn't really detract from anything, but
it is noticeable. You notice the Wilhelm scream. When you hear the Wilhelm scream, you notice the Wilhelm scream, basically.
It's a good scream, too. It's funny. Even Star Wars does this from time to time, but it's still iconic for a damn good reason.
Exactly. So
not knocking the scream, just showing how low they were going that they had to use
reuse
that for free.
Exactly. So, Stryker, what would you have to give Siveth?
I'm going with a 9 because I just
nice.
Well, even though I feel as though she isn't as memorable as characters like, say,
Babe.
I'm trying to remember her name, actually.
Like Ludmilla or Maleficent or that.
Sisu.
Name the series and we might be able to help you.
Sisu. That's what her name was.
Oh, Sisu.
She's not as memorable as Sisu for me, but she is a really, really good character.
Honestly, that's another thing I'd like to note out. Like, that movie, like, if it had gone the route of no Dragoness, it would honestly feel like a lesser man's Raya and the Last Dragon, except there would be people and there'd be basically no dragon, and it would suck.
Exactly. It definitely would feel a little more generic. Yeah, very, very, very generic. Wouldn't work out well at all. Okay, and LuckyEevee, what would you give Siveth?
I was gonna give her a 7, but then I'd be bringing the average down. That'll make me feel bad.
Okay, that's okay. No, nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that, yeah.
Do what you want to do.
Do what you want to do. Don't feel pressured for anything like that.
Yeah.
I will give her a 7 from appearances because I forgot to watch the movie again.
All right, sounds good. Okay, so if you have any questions or if you want to throw a party with Siveth, you can feel free to email us at fierydiscourse@outlook.com or post on or share with us on Twitter on twitter.com/fierydiscourse. Next time we'll be talking about the 2022 movie Luck, which is one of the more recent Dragonesses with Babe, voiced by Jane Fonda, and that'll be next week's episode. That's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yep. So until then, thank you guys so much for listening, and thank you so much, and take care.
Peace, y'all.
Peace.
Oh, man.
Adios.